Okay. Hi, I'm Ian Tabor. This is my talk from an IVI in a box to a car in a box. First things first. Who am I? Well, my current day job is network security architect type role. However, you could say I'm the ultimate car hacker. I built this kit car 14 years ago now. Out of lots of parts of different Ford vehicles. It's a sort of labour of love. It's been upgraded numerous times. It's pretty quick. It only has 3 ECUs, 2 of which I have built. And the 2 I built actually communicate over CAN bus for data logging purposes. So on to my car hacking history. So previously found a vulnerability in a car I owned, a Citroen DS5, and I have previously presented those findings last year with my talk, Web Browsing from a Car, What's the Worst That Can Happen? Presented that at DC 4420, B-Sides London Rookie Track, and also the DEF CON Car Hacking Village itself last year. At the end of last year, I was lucky enough to be one of 12 car hackers invited to the Bug Crowd live Bug Bash in Louisville with a actual vendor who let us play with their cars. I can't actually go into any more details than that because we're not allowed, but that's quite interesting. So on to the actual vulnerability I found. Brief history. 2015, I bought this vehicle, DS5. 1955 limited edition. Had all the bells and whistles, all the toys, including a 7-inch touchscreen, which you could surf the internet from as long as you tethered through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, which is great. However, the problem was if you actually were on the same Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, you could telnet back to the vehicle, get into the head unit without any authentication and find out your GPS and telephone history, including all your contacts, etc., etc. Nice and secure. I then raised that issue with the vendor in question. They then came back and said it's up to the users to secure their own Wi-Fi, but in future models we'll probably just kill the Wi-Fi version anyway because we don't see it as a requirement. So at the time I sold the vehicle, but I thought, can I actually get any further than just telnetting onto the head unit? Was there any way of going from the Wi-Fi IP network onto the CAN bus? So I went and purchased a head unit from a scrapyard from a DS3 from the same year. Had all the same setup, allegedly, with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You could surf the internet on it. And when I purchased it, the man in the scrapyard said, you'll never get that working without the rest of the car. So challenge accepted. As you can see on the picture here, there is all the other parts of the rest of the car you need to get it working, including the body control module here, instrument cluster, the steering controls, ignition key. You don't actually need the ECU, but I did have it at the time. So that was what was required to actually get the head unit working out of the vehicle. But the challenge was, could I get it working without the rest of the car? So I did a bit of CAN bus sniffing. Managed to sniff the correct messages, replay them, found out that there was 5 messages required, created a little sketch on an Arduino with the relevant CAN bus transceiver, and created a little lone IVI in a box. I have taken this to a few conferences. Other people have expressed interest in trying to hack this and see what they can do with their skills, but because of time constraints and things, they haven't actually managed to do that. But things will happen soon. So as I had quite a large proportion of the components from within a vehicle, I thought I'd make a car on a bench. This is Grimm's 3PO, which is based on, I believe, a 2012 Ford Focus, and they've got minimal wiring between the modules, and basically all the modules sit there dumb and you can interact with them, but the car doesn't actually work as a car. So there's no engine running, etc., etc. So from then on, end of last year, I went to the Bug Bash and myself, Spectres and RQU found a P1 vulnerability and managed to share between us a 5-figure payout. So with that money that I wasn't expecting, I decided to, instead of having a car on a bench, I'd make a car in a box. The thought being that this car in a box could be taken to security conferences to get other people into car hacking without the risk of potentially them bricking their own car. If you've ever done car hacking, sitting outside the front of your house with a bright laptop, sniffing CAN messages, get some very strange looks from neighbours. And if you're anything like me, last time I did it on my daily driver, I managed to brick the gearbox, and the car didn't know where the gearbox was. Luckily, I managed to get it back, but that would have been a very difficult conversation when it comes to getting the car back on the road. So car hacking is a bit like lockpicking. Only do it to something you don't rely on, and also only do it to your thing. So with the thought of the car in the box, I then had to purchase all these other components shown here to actually have the rest of the vehicle. So there's a steering rack ECU, main fuse box, ABS ECU, pedal, throttle body. The rest of the components, some of the rest of these components already had. I also had to buy quite a lot of sensors so that I could work out how those sensors work and how I could emulate those sensors. And this all costs money. I will come to the costs in the end. But before you can work out how to emulate sensors, you need to work out how the wiring works. This here is the wiring diagram for my kit car's main ECU. There is a DB37 connector, of which 15 wires are connected, 6 of those are ground. That car uses it's a 4-cylinder wasted spark coil pack, batch injection with 2 pairs of 2 injectors, single O2 sensor, a couple of other sensors for throttle position, air intake, coolant temperature, etc., etc. And there's not really much to it. When it comes to the car that I had the parts from, a Peugeot 208, this is one of the wiring diagrams. This is actually the wiring diagram for the ECU. This has 2 53-pin connectors and one 32-pin connector. So that's potentially 138 pins. The reason why it's more complicated is because it's 3-cylinder sequential injection, coil on plug, dual O2 sensor, dual variable valve timing with dual cam sensors, and then it's got all the rest of the relevant sensors you would expect it to have, throttle position sensor, electronic pedal, manifold air pressure. So quite a lot of these sensors I had to then emulate. And there are also lots of other wiring diagrams I had to get hold of to work out how to get things like lights working, because there was no way in the world I was going to put the light clusters in the vehicle. But the hardest, well, one of the hardest ones to actually emulate is the the engine thinking it's rotating. To do this, you have to know how the crank and the cam signals work. Peugeots, in general, actually use what is known as 60-1 crank sensor, and they use 2 cam sensors, which are located at the right-hand end of the 2 camshafts here, and you have to work out what that signal is to be able to emulate it. You also have to remember that the crank turns twice for every full rotation of a camshaft. Found a bit of software on the internet called Stim, which uses an Arduino and some other transistors to generate these waveforms to fool the ECU into thinking it's working. There is also a potentiometer on there so that you can vary the speed of the engine. And once this was all built and plugged in, it actually thought the engine was running. There are some other sensors that require waveform type things to work correctly, one of which is the O2 sensor. There is a couple of 555 timers in there, which are used for generating the relevant O2 sensor information. So it detects that it's either lean or rich or in a sort of waveform. So on to the next slide. Here is the details of the actual CAN networks on the vehicle itself, or the car in the box. On the left-hand side, we have the red and orange, which is your normal OBD2 port running at 500 kilobits per second. You've got the body control module, which controls things like your lights, some of the switches on the dashboard, etc. You've got the ABS ESP module, the power steering, and your engine ECU. Attached to the body control module on top of that is the two low-speed CAN buses shown here in yellow and green and two shades of blue. The yellow and green one itself has the steering control ECU, where your indicator stalks and your lighting switches, etc. are. There's also the airbag ECU, which is not available in the car in the box, because there was no way I was putting a Class 1 explosive in the back of my car and taking it around to conferences to let other people to try and set off said car, Class 1 explosives at the conference, because it's a bit dodgy, and airbag ECUs are actually very expensive to purchase themselves. Onto the second of the low-speed CAN buses, there is the one that has the instrument cluster, the matrix within the instrument cluster, which shows you things like speed, miles per gallon, GPS information, and finally the IVI itself. There is a fourth high-speed CAN bus on the car in the box, but that only goes between the IVI and the screen of the IVI, and that is for the touch screen to actually work. So now we're going on to the actual car in the box. This is the car in the box. There's the little box, which is the IVI in the box, and the big box, which is the car in the box. It's going to be known as PDO, P indicating Peugeot, DO indicating 208 in hex, because that's the vehicle it's from. There's the IVI open, as you've seen before, and there are the two parts of the car in the box. Let me just go through some of the things on the screen. On the left-hand corner here is a little blue box, which is the RG Stim, which is simulating the crank and cam waveforms. There is a potentiometer on there, which allows you to modify the speed of the engine. If you look on the right-hand side, there is the rev counter on the left-hand side of the cluster. Looks like it's going about 3,000 RPM at the moment. That can be adjusted anything from 0 up to 8,000 RPM. However, the clock stopped at 7. Other indicators on here. There's some LEDs for the injectors, LEDs for the coil. There's the potentiometer for the water temperature. You've got the throttle body and the pedal, which they do work. So if you push down on the pedal, the throttle body will open. Depending on the speed of the engine, how far that throttle body will open. There are, as you can see, there is the O2 simulator. All you can see in that is a flashing LED at a very low rate, but it seems to fool the ECU itself into thinking the O2 simulator is working, or the O2 sensor is working. It still does throw an error message up on the dashboard for the heater circuit, but to fix that, I need to put in some very large resistors to make it think that the actual heaters are actually there. But they will waste a lot of electricity and get very hot very quickly, because they're normally turned on all the time. But as you can see along the bottom there, you've got the steering rack, main fuse box, body control module, lighting board here on the left-hand side, which allows you to see what the lights are doing. On the right-hand side, you have the main power supply, steering switches, instrument cluster, other switches, etc. And your ignition key. You do actually have to turn the ignition key to get the thing to turn on. You then have to tweak the revs to actually get it up above a certain value, otherwise it turns itself off again. On the screen, you can also see in the bottom there, by where my mouse is, there is the main OBD2 port. On the right-hand side, there are two other OBD2 connectors, which allows you access to the normally hidden low-speed CAN buses. The last challenge I have between now and B-Sides Leeds this Friday is to actually get the ABS ECU thinking that the wheel sensors are there, because that is the last part of the puzzle. And if I can do that, I can actually have the whole car in the box thinking that the vehicle is moving and the engine is running, and then you could then hack it in a real life situation. It's basically built for other people to play with. I haven't really sat down much and played with it myself, other than fuzzing some of the dials. If you look very closely, it's got 1.2 million miles. I fuzzed the odometer and sent it a bit too far. Oops. But it's probably better if someone does it on this vehicle than on their daily driver, especially if it's a lease car and they take it back and go, oops, you've done lots of mileage, I'm going to charge you. That's me done. Any comments and questions, please put them on Twitter or on the online forum post. The Twitter uses the hashtag #ItTakesACrowd. My contact details are on there. If any of you are coming to B-Side Leeds, come and say hi, come and have a play, see if you can break it. I'm sure someone will, because I guarantee it, we broke cars at the Bug Bash. Oops. Thank you very much. So I've just seen a question here on YouTube. What was the overall cost of the project? The IVI in the box probably cost me about £500, which is probably about $600–700. The entire car in a box has probably cost me about £2,000. Hopefully my missus isn't watching this, but car components aren't cheap. The actual box itself probably cost me almost £200 to build itself, but it is designed to fit in the boot of my car and be portable. Currently, I only have it booked for B-Side Leeds this Friday. I have had discussions in taking it to Nolcon in Goa. However, logistics of that would make it almost impossible. But hopefully I may take it to DEF CON this year if we can get someone to actually ship it for me. But any other questions? One thing I would like to say is thank you to BugCrowd for the Bug Bash event and for putting on this event today. It's been great fun. Thank you very much. Any other questions? That was probably a bit quick, but this talk is actually aimed for this Friday as well, for B-Side Leeds. And basically, I wanted the talk to be as sort of quick as possible so that the actual people got more time on the actual box itself. Thanks, Chris, for your comment. Awesome talk as well. I completely understand you there because I've worked in the NHS and I know what their problems are. Getting started in car hacking is, shall we say, not that easy. Problem is the Car Hacker's Handbook is a very good read. Have a read, have a play, be very careful with your own vehicle. As I said, I've previously bricked my Jag and it lost the gearbox, and it took me 3 attempts to get it back, and it then took 3 weeks to basically learn how to change gear again, because it's got one of them intelligent gearboxes that actually learn your driving style and change gear as you would need it to change gear. I will be at B-Sides Leeds selling small CAN bus adapters that at nominal cost that will allow you basic entry into sniffing CAN data. It doesn't actually give you any access to send it back again, but you can have a play, you can plug in, you can see what messages are coming through, do something like lock the car, see which message comes through, unlock the car, then play it back, see what happens. If you do brick your car, disconnect the battery for a considerable amount of time and plug it back in, it will normally fix itself. There are occasions where you will have to potentially get someone involved to help you fix it, but hopefully it's not that bad. If there's a car hacker out there that says that they've never bricked their own car, they're lying, because everyone does it. You will do it once and you will think, oh my God, what have I done? But once you've actually fixed it again and got everything working, it's great, and you will learn something. Hopefully you don't repeat it. So yes, yeah, the one good resource is Car Hacker's Handbook. Another good resource is the Car Hacking Village at DEF CON and other events. Looks like I'm now running Car Hacking Village UK, possibly even Europe. I may be going to Hack in the Box Amsterdam later in the year with the American Car Hack Village team. I would like to say thank you to them for their support with the work that is going in for Chris, don't play with airbags. They are Class 1 explosives. Not a good thing to do. I like your style, but that's why I left out the airbag ECU, because I didn't want someone setting off a Class 1 explosive in their face. Yeah, hacking Teslas is great if you've got the 90 grand to actually buy the car in its first place. So, yeah, I would like to, but no one would actually lend me one. Casey, have you managed to play with your little CAN bus adapter yet?
Hey Ian, this is Sam. Sorry, I can't hear you because I've due to the stream setup, but yeah, thank you so much for helping us out today. And yeah, feel free to pass on to the next person whenever you're ready. But thanks, man.
Yep, there's just a couple more questions. No, I haven't found any bugs in the kit I've set up, predominantly because I haven't actually been looking for them. I've actually been trying to get the thing to actually think it's a car and running. Having to play with scopes and things is a pain in the bum. I'm an electrical engineer, but it's been 20 years since I've done any of that sort of stuff. Chris, your question regarding V2V and V2X, don't go there. I know how some of the American traffic light systems work. They use no authentication, they use no encryption, and if you DOS them hard enough, you can make the traffic lights change and you can basically have fun. If you really want fun, have a look at Waze. It's an API. If you want to make your journey home really easy, spoof your GPS location on the API, tell him there's a massive car pile up on your normal route home. Anyone else using the app will think, oh no, there's a massive car pile up. You can then go, oops, road's empty. Jobs are good. Any more questions? I'd like to hand over early to the next one just so we can catch up.